I always thought I knew my wife, Elise, like the back of my hand. After 12 years of marriage, you convince yourself you've mapped every corner of a person's soul. Their quirks, their dreams, the way they stir their coffee with a little swirl before sipping. Elise was my constant, my anchor. We'd built a life in our cozy Seattle suburb, a craftsman house with a wraparound porch, a garden she tended with obsessive care, and a routine that felt like a warm blanket. Mornings were her domain. She'd rise early, brew coffee, and hum some old jazz tune while I shuffled downstairs, bleary-eyed, to kiss her forehead before heading to my accounting firm. Evenings were ours. Dinners at the oak table we'd refinish together, her laughter filling the room as we recounted our days. It was predictable, sure, but it was ours. Or so I thought. The first hint something was wrong came in late autumn, when the maples outside our house were shedding crimson leaves. Elise had been distant for weeks, but I chalked it up to her new project at the museum where she worked as a curator. She'd been curating an exhibit on Northwest Native art, spending late nights cataloging artifacts, her phone buzzing with emails from colleagues. I didn't mind. Her passion for her work was one of the things I loved most about her. But that October, her late nights grew later, her phone buzzed more often, and her smiles felt rehearsed. I'd catch her staring out the kitchen window, her hazel eyes unfocused, as if she were somewhere else entirely. "Everything okay, love?" I asked one evening, setting down my fork mid-bite of her famous roasted chicken. She blinked, startled, and flashed a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Of course, Daniel. Just tired. The exhibit's kicking my butt." She reached for her wineglass, her fingers lingering on the stem a beat too long. I nodded, accepting it. Elise was never one to overshare when stressed. She'd retreat into herself, then emerge when the storm passed. But the storm didn't pass. Her phone became a third presence in our home, always in her hand, always angled just out of my sight. She'd laugh at messages when she thought I wasn't looking, her thumbs flying over the screen. Once, I glimpsed a name, *Evan*, before she locked the phone and set it face down on the counter. "Who's Evan?" I asked, keeping my tone light, though something cold coiled in my chest. "Oh, just a colleague," she said, too quickly. "He's helping with the exhibit. Total workaholic, like me." She laughed, but it sounded brittle, like glass about to crack. I didn't push. I trusted her. Elise wasn't the type to hide things. She was the woman who'd once left a grocery list on the fridge with tampons, written in bold marker, unembarrassed. But the cold coil in my chest didn't go away. It grew, fed by small things. The way she'd started wearing perfume to work, a new scent I didn't recognize. The way she'd linger in the shower, as if washing away something I couldn't see. The way our evenings together felt like performances, her affection mechanical, her kisses perfunctory. By November, I couldn't ignore it anymore. The coil had become a weight, pressing against my ribs every time she left the house with a vague, "I'll be late." I started noticing patterns. She'd leave her phone in her purse when she showered, but she'd lock the bathroom door. A new habit. She'd mention Evan in passing, always tied to work, but his name carried a warmth that made my skin prickle. I'd lie awake at night, her soft breathing beside me, wondering if I was paranoid or if the life we'd built was slipping through my fingers. One evening, I decided to test the waters. We were on the couch, a half-watched documentary about penguins flickering on the TV. Her phone buzzed, and she reached for it, her body tensing slightly. I leaned over, casual as I could manage, and said, "Work again? You guys are relentless." She didn't look at me. "Yeah, just Evan," with another artifact question. Her fingers tapped out a reply, and she set the phone down, screen dark. "Must be nice, having such a dedicated colleague," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "What's he like?" She shifted, tucking her legs under her. "Oh, artsy type. Bit of a nerd about carvings. Nice guy, I guess." Her words were clipped, like she was measuring them out. "Nice guy, huh? Should I be jealous?" I forced a chuckle, but it came out wrong, sharp-edged. She froze, then laughed. A high, nervous sound. "Don't be ridiculous, Daniel. He's just a coworker." But her eyes didn't meet mine, and the weight in my chest sank deeper. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I lay there, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of the past few months. The late nights, the locked bathroom, the perfume, the name Evan. I told myself I was overreacting, that I was letting my imagination run wild. But the next morning, when Elise left for work with a quick peck on my cheek and a "see you tonight," I couldn't shake the feeling that I was losing her. I called in sick to the firm, something I hadn't done in years. My hands shook as I poured a second cup of coffee, the house too quiet without her humming. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I started in her office, a small room off the living area, cluttered with books on indigenous art and stacks of exhibit notes. Her laptop sat on the desk, closed, a post-it note stuck to the lid with a doodle of a raven, her favorite symbol. I hesitated, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. This wasn't me. I wasn't the guy who snooped, but the weight in my chest pushed me forward. I opened the laptop, and the screen prompted for a password. I tried her usual, our anniversary 101512, and it worked. My heart pounded as I clicked through her emails, expecting to find nothing but work. Most were mundane. Museum schedules, artifact inventories, emails from colleagues. But then I saw it, a thread with evan.martin@museum.org. The subject lines were innocuous: exhibit layout, carving provenance. I opened one, my eyes scanning the text. It started professional, discussing a cedar totem, but halfway down, the tone shifted. "I can't stop thinking about last night," Evan wrote. Asterisk, "You make it so hard to focus on work. Meet me at the usual spot tomorrow." Asterisk. My stomach lurched. I scrolled down, finding her reply. Asterisk, "Your trouble. You know that? I'll be there. 7 p.m. Asterisk. I sat back, the room spinning. My wife, my Elise, was meeting someone. Not just someone, Evan. The nice guy colleague. The artsy nerd. I clicked through more emails, each one a knife. They'd been meeting for weeks, maybe months, at a cafe downtown, at a bar near the museum, at a hotel once, the receipt attached to one email for a reimbursement that was clearly a lie. My hands trembled as I closed the laptop, my coffee cold on the desk. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at the raven doodle. The woman I loved, the woman I'd built a life with, was slipping away. Not just emotionally, but physically, intimately, with someone else. The betrayal wasn't just a crack in our marriage. It was a chasm. I wanted to confront her, to scream, to demand answers. But something colder took root instead. I didn't want to just confront her. I wanted her to feel the weight of what she'd done, to understand the wreckage she'd left in her wake. I spent the rest of the day digging. I wasn't proud of it, but I needed to know everything. I checked her phone records online. Hundreds of texts to a number I didn't recognize. Late-night calls that lasted hours. I found Evan Martin on the museum's website. A curator in his late 30s, with a smug smile and wire-rimmed glasses, his bio boasting about his passion for cultural storytelling. I hated him instantly, but I hated myself more for not seeing this sooner. That evening, when Elise came home, I played my part. I smiled, asked about her day, even kissed her cheek as she set her purse down. She seemed lighter, almost relieved, as if my normalcy reassured her. But I saw the cracks now, the way her eyes darted to her phone, the way she angled her body away from me when she typed. We ate dinner, her chatter about the exhibit filling the silence, but all I could think about was her with him, laughing, touching, sharing moments that were supposed to be mine. I didn't confront her that night, or the next. Instead, I watched, I planned, and I let the cold coil in my chest grow into something sharp and deliberate. Elise had betrayed me in a way I never thought possible, and I wasn't going to let it go unanswered. I didn't know what form my revenge would take, but I knew it would be precise, devastating, and hers to bear. She'd feel every ounce of the pain she'd inflicted, and I'd make sure of it. The days after I discovered Elise's betrayal were like walking through a fog so thick it choked me. Every moment in our home, every glance at her, every mundane act, her brushing her hair, her stirring sugar into her coffee, felt like a lie I was forced to swallow. I kept up the facade, though. I had to. If I confronted her too soon, she'd slip away with excuses, tears, or worse, that hollow smile she'd been practicing for weeks. No, I needed to know more, to build a case so airtight that when the time came, she'd have nowhere to hide. More than that, I needed to craft a response that would cut as deeply as her betrayal had cut me. So I watched, I waited, and I planned. Elise didn't suspect a thing. She went about her days with the same breezy confidence, leaving for the museum each morning with her tote bag slung over her shoulder, her new perfume trailing behind her like a taunt. I started tracking her movements, not out of obsession but necessity. I needed evidence, not just for my own sanity but to ensure my revenge would land with precision. I checked her phone records again, cross-referencing the dates and times of her texts to Evan with her supposed late nights at work. The pattern was clear. Tuesday and Thursday evenings, she'd claim a meeting or cataloging session, but her texts to Evan revealed rendezvous at a wine bar called the Cedar Loft, a boutique hotel downtown, or, once, a park near the waterfront where they'd watched the sunset. Each discovery was a fresh wound, but I didn't let myself crumble. I funneled the pain into focus. I started following her. It wasn't something I'd ever imagined doing, tailing my own wife like some private investigator in a bad noir film. But on a rainy Tuesday evening, when she texted me that she'd be stuck at the museum until 9, I couldn't sit still. I drove to the museum, parking across the street in my silver Honda, the wipers slapping against the drizzle. Her car was there, a blue Prius in the employee lot, but by 6:30 p.m., I saw her slip out a side door, her umbrella bobbing as she hurried to a black sedan idling nearby. Evan's car, I assumed. My grip tightened on the steering wheel as I followed at a distance, my headlights cutting through the Seattle mist. They didn't go far, just to the Cedar Loft, a trendy spot with exposed brick and dim lighting, the kind of place Elise would have once mocked as pretentious. I parked a block away, my heart hammering as I watched them through the bar's fogged-up window. They sat close, too close, her hand resting on his arm, her laugh visible even from the street. He leaned in, whispering something that made her tilt her head back, her hair catching the light. It was intimate, unguarded, the way she used to be with me. I wanted to storm in, to shatter their cozy little scene, but I didn't. I took photos instead, my phone's camera zooming in on their silhouettes, capturing every damning moment. Evidence. I needed more. Over the next 2 weeks, I became a shadow in my own life. At home, I was Daniel, the dutiful husband, nodding along as Elise rambled about her exhibit or complained about a coworker's incompetence. But when she left for her meetings, I was someone else, someone methodical, relentless. I followed her 3 more times, twice to the wine bar, once to a hotel called the Mariner's Rest, where they disappeared into a lobby elevator, her arm looped through his. Each time, I documented it. Photos, timestamps, even a grainy video of them kissing outside the bar, her fingers tangled in his scarf. I saved everything in a folder on my laptop, password protected, labeled work files. The irony wasn't lost on me. I also dug deeper into Evan Martin. His museum bio was just the surface. A quick search on X turned up his profile, at Evan M. Art, full of artsy photos of driftwood sculptures and cryptic quotes about living authentically. His posts were smug, self-important, but they gave me what I needed, a glimpse into his life. He was single, no kids, lived in a loft downtown. He posted about gallery openings, craft cocktails, and once, a sunset with a caption that read, "Moments that make you feel alive." The photo showed a woman's hand holding a wine glass. Her nails painted a familiar shade of coral, Elise's shade. I saved the post, my jaw tight. I didn't just stop at X. I found his LinkedIn, his old college blog, even a public records search that turned up his address and a parking ticket from last year. The more I learned, the more I hated him. Not just for what he was doing with my wife, but for the ease of his life, the way he seemed to glide through it without consequence. He was the kind of man who thought he could take what wasn't his and walk away unscathed. I'd make sure he didn't. At home, Elise's behavior grew bolder, as if she sensed my passivity and took it for ignorance. She'd leave her phone on the counter now, not even bothering to lock it sometimes. Once, I saw a text from Evan pop up, "Miss you already. Tomorrow?" She deleted it before I could screenshot, but I didn't need to. I had enough. Still, I kept up the act, cooking dinners, asking about her day, even suggesting we plan bold plot plan for revenge. Cruel revenge, she'd said, but I wasn't sure what that meant yet. I just knew it had to match the scale of her betrayal. One night, over dinner, she mentioned Evan again, unprompted. We were eating pasta, the sauce too salty because I'd been distracted, my mind on the photos burning a hole in my laptop. "Evan found this amazing Haida mask today," she said, twirling her fork. "He's got such an eye for detail. It's like he sees things no one else does." I forced a smile, my throat tight. "Sounds like a talented guy." She nodded, oblivious to the edge in my voice. "Oh, he is. You'd like him, I think." The words hit like a punch, but I swallowed them, my mind already turning to the next step. I didn't just want to expose her. I wanted her to feel the weight of her choices, to lose something as precious as what she'd taken from me. And Evan, he'd pay too. I spent nights awake, plotting, discarding ideas that felt too small. Divorce wasn't enough. It was too clean, too ordinary. I wanted something that would linger, something that would make them both look in the mirror and see the cost of their betrayal. By mid-December, I had a plan. It wasn't just about humiliation or confrontation. It was about dismantling their world in a way that felt personal, permanent. I started with Evan. His life revolved around his reputation as a curator, his authenticity, his carefully curated persona. I take that from him piece by piece. I began by contacting a colleague at the museum, a woman named Sarah who'd always been friendly at staff parties. I posed as a journalist writing about Northwest art, asking for insights on the museum's curators. Sarah was happy to chat, and when I steered the conversation to Evan, she mentioned a rumor about missing artifacts. A small carving that had vanished from storage last year. Nothing proven, but the suspicion had lingered. The seed was planted. I spent hours researching museum protocols, learning how artifacts were tracked, how losses were investigated. I didn't have access to the museum, but I had Evan's email address from Elisa's laptop. I created a burner account and sent an anonymous tip to the museum's director, hinting at Evan's involvement in the missing carving, with just enough detail to spark an audit. I didn't expect it to destroy him outright, but it would put him under scrutiny, make him sweat. It was just the beginning. For Elise, the plan was more personal. Her exhibit was her pride, her legacy. She'd poured years into it, and its opening in January was set to be her moment in the spotlight. I knew how much it meant to her. The late nights, the meticulous research, the way her eyes lit up when she talked about it. I'd let her have her moment, let her feel the high of success. Then I'd take it away. I contacted a friend in the art world, a guy named Marcus who owed me a favor from a tax audit I'd helped him through. Marcus had connections with local journalists, the kind who loved a juicy scandal. I fed him a story. The museum's star curator, Elise Thompson, had been falsifying artifact provenances to inflate the exhibit's value. I provided just enough fabricated evidence, altered emails, doctored inventory logs, to make it plausible without being traceable. Marcus didn't ask questions, he just passed it along. The plan was cruel, yes, but it felt right. Elise had betrayed me in the most intimate way, and Evan had enabled it, reveling in it. They'd built their affair on lies, so I'd tear them down with lies of my own. The museum would investigate, the story would leak, and their reputations would crumble. Elisa's exhibit would be tainted, her career in ruins. Evan would face audits, maybe worse, and I'd be there, the supportive husband, watching her world collapse, knowing I'd orchestrated it. As Christmas approached, Elise grew careless, leaving love notes from Evan in her purse, a scarf that smelled like his cologne in her car. I collected it all, my folder of evidence growing. But I didn't feel triumph, only a cold, steady resolve. The night before the holiday, we sat by the fireplace, her head on my shoulder, a scene so familiar it ached. "I love you, Daniel," she murmured, her voice soft. I looked at her, her face glowing in the firelight, and said, "I love you too." The words tasted like ash, but they kept her unsuspecting. The storm was coming, and when it hit, they'd both be swept away. The new year arrived with a deceptive calm, the kind that blankets Seattle in January. Gray skies, damp air, and a quiet that feels like the world holding its breath. Our craftsman home, once a sanctuary, now felt like a stage where I played my part with grim precision. Elise was oblivious, her days consumed by the final preparations for her exhibit's grand opening at the museum. She'd come home each night buzzing with excitement, her hazel eyes bright as she described the cedar totems, the woven baskets, the spotlight she'd earned after years of work. I nodded, smiled, and poured her wine, all the while knowing the trap I'd set was closing around her. Evan, too, was in my sights, his carefully curated life about to unravel. This wasn't just revenge. It was justice, a reckoning for the betrayal that had shattered my trust. The museum's exhibit opening was St. for January 15th, a Saturday evening that promised a crowd of local art enthusiasts, journalists, and museum donors. Elise spent the week before in a frenzy, double-checking display labels and rehearsing her speech. I offered to help, carrying boxes of programs to her car, adjusting her dress's hem when she fretted over it. "You're too good to me, Daniel," she said once, kissing my cheek. I smiled, but inside, the cold coil that had lived in my chest for months tightened. She had no idea what was coming. My plan had been in motion since December. The anonymous tip I'd sent to the museum's director about Evan's involvement with the missing carving had triggered an internal audit. I'd learned this from Sarah, my museum contact, who mentioned in a follow-up call, still posing as a journalist, that the staff was abuzz with tension. Evan was under scrutiny, his office searched, his emails combed through. He hadn't been suspended yet, but the whispers were spreading, and his smug confidence was fraying. I saw it in his ex-posts, which had shifted from artsy musings to curt updates about focusing on work. Good. Let him squirm. For Elise, the blow was more intricate. Marcus, my art world friend, had done his part, planting the seed of scandal with a journalist at the Seattle Times. The story I'd fed him, about Elise falsifying artifact provenances, wasn't airtight, but it didn't need to be. Museums live and die on reputation, and even a hint of fraud could taint an exhibit. I'd crafted fake emails between Elise and a fictional supplier, suggesting she'd inflated the value of certain pieces to secure funding. The emails were subtle, buried in her work account via a hacked login I'd paid a shady tech guy to arrange. I wasn't proud of the cost, $5,000 from our savings, but it was worth it. The journalist was sniffing around, asking questions, and Marcus assured me the story would break soon after the opening, when the spotlight was brightest. The night of the exhibit, I dressed in my best suit, a navy one Elise had picked out years ago, and drove her to the museum. She was radiant in a deep green dress, her hair swept up, her excitement palpable. "This is it, Daniel," she said, squeezing my hand as we parked. "This is everything I've worked for." I nodded, my throat tight, not with guilt but with anticipation. The museum was aglow, string lights draped across the entrance, a crowd already milling inside. Evan was there, of course, in a tweed blazer, shaking hands with donors. Our eyes met briefly, and I gave him a polite nod, my stomach churning with the knowledge of what awaited him. The evening unfolded like a dream for Elise. She gave her speech, her voice steady as she described the cultural significance of the artifacts, the crowd hanging on her every word. I stood at the back, clapping when they did, my face a mask of pride. But I was watching Evan, too, noting how he hovered near her, their glances too familiar, too charged. Once, I saw her brush his arm as she passed, a gesture so small it might have gone unnoticed by anyone else. But I saw it, and it fueled the fire inside me. The first crack appeared an hour into the event. Sarah pulled Elise aside, her face serious, and I caught fragments of their conversation. Something about discrepancies in the inventory. Elise's smile faltered, but she recovered, returning to the crowd with her charm intact. I knew what was coming. The audit had flagged issues, not just with Evan but with Elise's exhibit. My tip about Evan had been the spark, but the museum's paranoia had spread, and now they were questioning everything. I sipped my wine, watching her work the room, unaware of the noose tightening. The real blow came 2 days later. I was at the kitchen table, pretending to read the paper, when Elise stormed in, her face pale. "Daniel, you won't believe this," she said, her voice shaking. She thrust her phone at me, showing an email from the museum director. They were suspending her pending an investigation into provenance irregularities. The Seattle Times article had dropped that morning, a carefully worded piece hinting at fraud in the exhibit, naming Elise as the curator responsible. She was frantic, pacing, insisting it was a mistake. "Someone set me up," she said, tears in her eyes. "This could ruin me." I took her hand, my voice calm. "We'll figure it out, love. Maybe it's just a misunderstanding." But inside, I felt a grim satisfaction. The article didn't outright accuse her, but the damage was done. Donors were pulling back, colleagues whispering. Her exhibit, her legacy, was tainted before it could fully bloom. Evan's fall was swifter. The audit uncovered sloppy record-keeping in his department, and while they couldn't pin the missing carving on him directly, the suspicion was enough. He was let go quietly, the museum citing administrative restructuring. His ex-profile went silent, his last post a vague lament about moving on. I checked public records later. His loft was listed for sale, his reputation in the art world in tatters. He'd lost what mattered most to him, just as I'd planned. But I wasn't done with Elise. The professional ruin was only half the equation. I wanted her to feel the personal cost, to face the wreckage of our marriage head-on. A week after the article, I invited her to dinner at our favorite restaurant, a quiet Italian place we'd gone to on our first date. She was subdued, still reeling from the museum's investigation, but she agreed, hoping for a night of comfort. I'd chosen the setting deliberately, a reminder of what we'd been before she'd thrown it away. Over tiramisu, I slid an envelope across the table. "What's this?" she asked, her brow furrowing. "Open it," I said, my voice steady. She did, her hands trembling as she pulled out the photos. Grainy shots of her and Evan at the Cedar Loft, the hotel, the park. Her face went white, her fork clattering to the plate. "Daniel, don't." I cut her off, my tone ice cold. "I know everything. The emails, the texts, the hotel receipts. You and Evan. For months." She stared at me, tears welling, but I didn't soften. "I trusted you, Elise. I gave you everything. And you chose him." I leaned forward, my voice low. "But you don't get to walk away clean. The museum, the article, that was me. I made sure you'd lose what you loved most, just like I lost you." Her gasp was audible, her hands covering her mouth. You did this? Daniel, how could you? How could I?" I laughed, a bitter sound. "You betrayed me in the most intimate way, and you thought I'd just take it? You're done, Elise. Your career, your reputation, it's gone. And Evan? He's nothing now. You both thought you could play your little game and I'd never know." Well, I knew. She was sobbing now, the restaurant's other patrons glancing over, but I didn't care. I stood, tossing my napkin on the table. "I'm filing for divorce tomorrow. You can keep the house. I don't want it anymore. But you'll live with this, knowing you brought it on yourself." I walked out, leaving her there, her world in ruins. The divorce went through quickly, her shame too deep to fight me on much. She moved to a small apartment, her career stalled, her name whispered in art circles as a cautionary tale. Evan left Seattle, last I heard, working some low-level gallery job in Portland. I sold our house, moved to a condo downtown, and started over. The cold coil in my chest was gone, replaced by a quiet satisfaction. They'd betrayed me, but I'd made them pay, slowly, deliberately, and without mercy. Sometimes, late at night, I think of Elise, of the woman she was before Evan, before the lies. I don't regret what I did. She chose her path and I chose mine. And in the end, I was the one left standing.